You know that feeling, right? That constant nagging sense of having way too much to do.
Oh, absolutely. Like your brain's got too many tabs open.
Exactly. Too many commitments, things you should be doing buzzing around. It's just, well, overwhelm. It kills your focus, your peace of mind.
It really does. It's that feeling of being out of control, almost drowning in tasks, and not knowing where to even start. A really common uh, modern problem.
Totally. And that feeling, that specific challenge, is why we're doing this deep dive today. We're unpacking David Allen's Getting Things Done, GTD.
Ah, GTD, a classic in the productivity world.
Right. And our goal here is basically to give you a shortcut. We've dug into the key ideas from the source material to pull out the practical stuff, the core principles, maybe even some surprising bits to help you get a handle on it all. Find some clarity.
And it's worth digging into. TTD gets a lot of praise. The sources call it things like eminently practical, which it is, but also something that helps people regain control of their lives.
That's a big.
It is. And even potentially leading to a happier life with immediate results. It really promises a transformation.
And this isn't just theory. David Allen, the creator, he spent, 2 decades as a management consultant?
Yeah, coaching thousands, training hundreds of thousands. This system was forged in the real world, dealing with real people's overflowing inboxes and stressed out minds.
Okay, so it's road tested. But why is it so necessary? What's changed about work or life?
Well, that's a great question. Think about how work used to be. Maybe making widgets or farming. There was a clear endpoint. You finished the widgets, you milked the cows, done.
Right, tangible results. You could see completion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today, for so many knowledge workers, our projects has no edges, as Alan puts it. They're never really finished to perfection.
Yeah, how good could that report be? How perfect could that presentation be? It's endless.
Precisely. And then you add the internet, this infinite amount of data you could look at, relevant stuff just pouring in. It feeds that feeling of never, ever being truly done.
So you're always feeling kind of behind or like you're missing something.
Mm-hmm. And that constant sense of incompletion, it takes a toll. The sources say that when your personal systems are ineffective, you build up this huge subconscious resistance to taking on bigger things.
Because your brain knows you can't handle what you've already got.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
It knows the system's overloaded, so it resists adding more complex stuff, which just leads to more distraction, more stress. It's a vicious cycle.
So what's the mechanism behind that mental drag? Alan talks about open loops, right?
Yes, open loops or incompletes.
Mm-hmm.
He defines them as basically anything pulling at your attention that doesn't belong where it is the way it is.
And they can be huge or tiny.
Completely. The examples range from, like, end world hunger, a bit ambitious maybe, down to replace electric pencil sharpener.
Okay, so anything nagging at you is an open loop.
Anything you've committed to, internally or externally, that isn't finished. And according to the sources, these things stay stuck in your head for basically 3 reasons.
Okay, what are they?
1, you haven't actually decided what outcome you want. What does done look like?
Right. Vague goals stay vague thoughts.
2, you haven't decided the very next physical action step, not the project, but the next tiny thing you need to do.
Like, not do taxes, but find accountant's phone number.
Exactly. And 3, you haven't put reminders of that outcome and that next action into a system you actually trust.
Ah, the trust factor. So it's not in a trusted system. Your brain just keeps reminding you like an annoying pop-up ad.
Pretty much. It can't give up the job of reminding you until it knows it's captured reliably somewhere else. It has to keep juggling it.
And that juggling is exhausting. The source says it's a waste of time and energy to keep thinking about something that you make no progress on. Makes sense.
Which leads directly to the absolute core idea of GTD.
Which is?
Get it all out of your head. Externalize your brain. That's the foundation.
Simple but profound.
It really is. Alan says there's no real way to achieve the kind of relaxed control people want if they keep stuff rattling around inside. He aims to capture 100% of my stuff, his word, in objective tools, not in his mind.
And stuff means literally everything.
Everything. Little or big, personal or professional, urgent or not. Everything. That commitment to 100% capture is key.
Okay, get it all out. But where do you start? Big picture goals? Life mission?
Interestingly, no. GTD takes a very deliberate, bottom-up approach. While, intellectually, starting with a big picture seems logical.
Yeah, define your values, then your goals, then your projects.
Right. But Alan found most people are So embroiled in commitments on a day-to-day level, so caught up in the weeds, that their ability to focus on that larger horizon is seriously impaired.
You can't think about the destination when you're busy bailing water.
Exactly. So GTD says get control of the ground floor first. Handle all the current mundane stuff. That creates the mental space, the calm needed to then look up and think about the bigger picture effectively.
Okay, that makes practical sense. Let's walk through the actual workflow then. It's 5 phases, right? Starting with collect.
Phase 1, collect. This is all about corralling your stuff, getting it out of your head, off scraps of paper, out of email, and into containers.
Like an in tray or a digital inbox.
Yep, physical in baskets, email inboxes, notebook pages, voice memos, anywhere you temporarily hold things that need attention. They hold stuff in abeyance until you process them.
And the crucial part is,
You have to empty these containers regularly, completely, otherwise they just become black holes.
got it. So how long does this initial collection take if you're doing it properly for the first time?
Well, buckle up. Alan suggests setting aside maybe 2 days for the initial sweep. He mentions it taking all of 20 hours with one person for a truly full-blown capture.
20 hours. Wow.
Yeah, clearing out everything everywhere. Work, home, car, briefcase, drawers, the whole lot. It's about getting everything into the system so nothing is left lurking.
Okay, that's a serious reset button. Intense, but I can see why it's needed. So, after collect comes process, phase 2.
Correct. Processing, and this is key. Processing doesn't mean doing everything you collected. Not at all.
Right, that would take forever.
Processing means looking at each item one by one and deciding what it is, what it means, and what you're going to do with it, making a decision about its nature and the required action.
And this is where the famous 2-minute rule fits in.
Bingo. If, as you're processing an item, you realize the next action takes less than 2 minutes.
Do it right then and there.
Exactly. Don't defer it, don't track it, just get it done. It's often faster than filing it away.
That clears out a lot of small stuff quickly, I bet. What about bigger things?
For things taking longer, the absolute most critical improvement, according to Alan, is asking the next action question.
Okay, we touched on this. It's about hyperspecificity. Right?
Total specificity. What's the very next physical action required? Not the project, the action.
So clean the garage is a project, not an action.
Right. The next action might be call John, refrigerator in garage.
Yeah.
Or draft list of dump runs needed. Something concrete and physical you can actually do.
Or do my taxes becomes maybe email accountant for checklist.
Or find last year's tax return file. Or, as the source example says, maybe it's just waiting for K1 from Acme Trust. It clarifies the status and the next step, if any.
That clarity feels like the core benefit. It makes things less intimidating.
Absolutely. And a crucial discipline during processing is deal with one item at a time. Start at the top of your in tray, make a decision, move to the next. Don't cherry pick the easy ones.
Or create that dreaded, I'll deal with this later pile.
Exactly. Alan calls that the stack, things you kind of grunt at because you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
That just creates deferred decisions and more clutter. Process systematically.
Okay, so collect, then process, including the 2-minute rule and next action. What's phase 3?
Phase 3 is organize. Now that you've decided what each item is and what the next action is, you need to put reminders in the right places within your trusted system.
So where do these next actions go?
This is where GTD gets really practical. Actions often go on to contextual action lists. You organize tasks based on the context required to do them.
Meaning like where you are or what tools you need.
Precisely. Common lists are things like calls, for when you have a phone and some time, at computer, for email, writing, etc., errands, for when you're out and about.
Okay, I see. So you group similar tasks.
Yeah, also office actions, stuff you can only do at the office. At home, agendas, this is a great one, topics to discuss with specific people or in specific meetings, and read review.
The agendas list sounds super useful for managing interactions.
It is. And the beauty of context lists is you only look at what's relevant. If you're at your computer, you look at the at computer list. If you're heading out, you check errands. It makes choosing what to do much easier.
Takes the guesswork out. You also need a project list, right? I mentioned projects require more than one step.
Yes, a central projects list. This is just a list of all the outcomes you're committed to that need multiple actions. Clean garage, launch website, plan vacation. Seeing them all in one place gives you a complete inventory of your commitments.
Just the project titles, not all the steps.
Generally, yes. The list reminds you of the active projects. The individual next actions for those projects live on your context lists.
Got it. What about stuff you just need to keep, like information?
That goes into your reference files. This needs to be a simple library of data, easily retrievable, not complex. Allen emphasizes keeping general reference filing articles, notes, manuals at hand's reach, maybe even swivel distance from your chair,
Why so close?
to make filing instantaneous and easy. If it's hard to file something, you won't do it, and it will just pile up, becoming another open loop. Low friction is key.
Okay, easy filing. What shouldn't we do when organizing? Any traps?
A big one mentioned is avoiding those vague hold and review piles or files. Stuff you think you should look at again someday.
I'll get to this later. Abyss.
Exactly. They often lead to numbness and resistance because they represent deferred decisions and aren't actively reviewed. They just sit there, radiating vague guilt.
So what's better for things you need to see on a specific date?
A tickler system is one classic solution, like
Right.
43 folders, 31 daily, 12 monthly. You file something in the folder for the day you want to see it again, or use calendar reminders, something active, not passive.
And checklists, are they part of organizing?
Definitely. Checklists are great for recurring procedures or just reminding yourself of key areas. Could be for core life values, areas of focus, weekly review steps, key people. They provide structure and ensure things aren't forgotten.
Okay, collect, process, organize. That brings us to phase 4, review.
Yes, review. And this is arguably where the system really comes alive, particularly the weekly review,
Why is the weekly review so important?
because it's where the magic of workflow management is realized. It's your dedicated time, maybe an hour or two each week, to step back, look at everything, clean up loose ends, update your lists, and get current.
It's like system maintenance.
Essential maintenance. It's your chance to scan all the defined actions and options before you. This dramatically increases how effective your choices are in the coming week. You trust your system because you know it's up to date.
The source puts it well. Most people feel best about their work when they've cleaned up, closed up, clarified, and renegotiated all their agreements. Do this weekly instead of yearly.
Exactly. That weekly reset prevents things from building up and becoming overwhelming again. It maintains that feeling of control.
And review isn't just the weekly thing, right? It's also about looking at the right lists at the right time.
Glancing at your calls list when you have a few minutes and a phone, checking your agendas list before you meet with someone, reviewing errands before you leave the house. It's about engaging with the system dynamically.
Makes sense. Which leads naturally to the final phase, phase 5, do, making choices about what to actually work on.
Right. After all the collecting, processing, organizing, and reviewing, you still have to decide, what do I do right now? And Allen says, ultimately, this choice is an intuitive call.
Intuitive. After all that structure.
Well, yes. The whole point of the structure is to inform your intuition, to make it reliable. You've externalized everything, clarified actions, organized them by context. Now, when you look at your options, you can trust your gut feeling about what's best to do.
But there's still a model to help guide that intuition, isn't there? The 4 criteria model.
Yes, a hierarchy for making that choice in the moment. First, you consider context. Where are you? What tools do you have? What can you possibly do right now?
If you're on a plane with no Wi-Fi, you don't look at your online research list.
Exactly. Second, time available. How much time do you have until your next hard landscape item, like a meeting? Match the task to the time block. Got 5 minutes. Do a quick call or email.
Okay, context, time. What's third?
Third is energy available.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Are you sharp and focused or kind of wiped out?
Matching the task to your mental state.
Precisely. Keep an inventory of tasks that need very little mental or creative horsepower, like filing, data entry, reading background material for those low-energy times. Interestingly, the source also notes that closing loops increases energy, so doing even simple tasks can give you a boost.
That's a neat feedback loop. Context, time, energy. And only then comes priority. Number 4.
Only then comes priority. This surprises people, but it makes sense. What good is a high-priority task if you're in the wrong place, context, don't have enough time, or lack the mental energy to do it well?
Yeah, you'll just spin your wheels or do a poor job.
Exactly. The danger is getting sucked into ad hoc work, whatever just showed up or seems urgent, and ignoring your predefined lists.
Which leads back to stress.
Right. Because the stress comes from not feeling comfortable about what you're not dealing with. When you ignore your trusted system, random stuff eventually blows up into emergencies, and you're back in reactive mode. The system helps you consciously choose what not to do, too.
Okay, that 5-phase workflow, collect, process, organize, review, do, seems really comprehensive for managing the day-to-day. But what about bigger stuff, like actual projects?
Good question. That's moving from the horizontal control of actions to the vertical focus on outcomes. GTD includes a model for that too, called the natural planning model.
Natural planning, meaning it's how our brains already work.
Essentially, yes. It outlines 5 phases that Alan argues we go through naturally whenever we successfully accomplish anything, whether it's planning dinner or a company merger. We just don't always do it consciously, especially for complex things.
Okay, what are the phases?
First is purpose,
Right.
asking why. Why are we doing this project? What's the point? Clarifying purpose is crucial for motivation, focus, allocating resources.
And if the purpose isn't clear,
You can never do enough of it, as Alan says. You don't know what success looks like or when to stop.
makes sense. What's phase 2?
Phase 2 is vision outcome. Imagine wild success. What does it look like, feel like, sound like after it's done? Really visualizing that successful outcome.
Why is that important?
Because envisioning success instantly creates ideas and thought patterns you wouldn't have had otherwise. It boosts enthusiasm and creativity. You start thinking from the endpoint backwards.
Cool. So, purpose, vision, then what?
Phase 3 is brainstorming. Once you know the why and the what, ideas about the how just start popping into your head. The key here is capturing them all without judgment.
Like a mental data dump.
Exactly. Alan calls it leveraging distributed cognition. Get ideas out of your head onto paper or a screen, and your mind will give you more. The rules are simple. Don't judge, challenge, evaluate, or criticize. Go for quantity, not quality initially. Put analysis aside for now.
Just get it all out there. Free flow.
Then comes phase 4.
Yeah.
Organizing. Once you have a bunch of brainstormed ideas captured externally, you can start seeing patterns. A natural organization's emerging. You identify the significant pieces, group-related items, maybe sequence them, figure out priorities.
You structure the chaos you just created.
Right. And finally, phase 5. Next actions. From that organized plan, you identify the very next physical actions required to move each part of the project forward, which links back perfectly to the horizontal workflow we discussed.
So the natural planning model feeds the daily action lists. It connects the big picture to the ground floor.
Precisely. And it contrasts sharply with what Alan sees as unnatural planning, like just getting busier without purpose, or drawing org charts without vision, or brainstorming without knowing why. That often leads to wasted effort.
This whole system seems very practical, but there's clearly some deeper psychology at play too, right? Like why we feel so overwhelmed.
Oh, absolutely. One of the core psychological insights in GTD is about where negative feelings actually come from. It's not, Alan argues, from having too much to do. Because let's face it, there's always too much to do.
Yeah, the potential to-do list is infinite.
The negative feelings, the stress, the guilt, the anxiety come from broken agreements. Specifically, agreements we've made with ourselves.
Broken agreements, how so?
Think about your inbox, or any collection point. It's essentially full of agreements. Things you agreed, consciously or implicitly, to consider, to act on, to decide about. When these pile up, unclarified and undecided, they represent broken or unkept agreements. That's what weighs on us.
That's a powerful reframe. So how do we avoid breaking all these agreements?
Well, the sources lay out 3 options when you encounter a potential agreement or commitment.
Okay.
1, don't make the agreement. Be ruthless. Trash stuff, delete emails, say no. If it's not relevant or you can't commit, don't let it become an open loop.
Option 2.
2, complete the agreement. Do the action. Finish the task. Even small completions generate positive energy and reduce the backlog.
And the third option?
3, renegotiate the agreement. This is crucial. Consciously decide to do it later, delegate it, or put it on a someday maybe list. But this requires knowing what you're not doing and making an explicit choice, which is only possible if you've captured and clarified everything.
So you're consciously managing the agreement, not just letting it fester.
Exactly. And this ties directly into procrastination, too.
How does GTD help with procrastination, beyond just having lists?
It's that relentless focus on the next action. The source makes a fascinating point. Often, it's the most creative, sensitive, and intelligent people who procrastinate more.
Really? Why is that? Seems counterintuitive.
Because their sensitivity and creativity allow them to imagine all the potential complexities and lurid nightmare scenarios associated with a project.
So they think due taxes and their brain instantly jumps to what if I made a mistake, IRS, audit, jail.
Precisely. Whereas the source humorously contrasts them with insensitive oafs who just take something and start plodding forward without overthinking it.
Okay, so what's the solution for the sensitive, creative procrastinators among us?
It circles back again. Clarify. One little step toward solution. Do something. Break down the overwhelming, scary project into the smallest possible, non-threatening next physical action.
Like find the tax folder or open the tax software.
Yes, that tiny step breaks the inertia. It makes the monster less monstrous. It sounds almost too simple, maybe.
It does feel deceptively simple. But maybe that's the power. Just focusing on the absolute immediate next thing you can physically do, ignoring the huge thing for a moment.
I think it's a huge part of it. It lowers the activation energy dramatically. It allows forward momentum, which builds confidence and reduces resistance over time.
Okay, so the impact is personal productivity, less stress.
Yeah.
But does it scale? What's the broader impact?
Definitely. Alan talks about multi-level outcome management. The system helps you connect the high-level idealistic stuff, your goals, your vision, with the mundane activity of life. It helps people direct and utilize their intelligence more productively across the board.
And that impacts more than just the individual.
For sure. Imagine a team or even a whole organization where everyone is managing their open loops effectively. The source suggests this leads to a new standard of high performance. Problems get surfaced and dealt with appropriately instead of festering. Communication becomes clearer.
That makes sense. Fewer things falling through the cracks, less miscommunication.
There's even a fascinating anecdote about Alan and his wife using physical in-baskets to pass communications back and forth, even in the same house.
In baskets for personal stuff sounds a bit cold.
That was the initial reaction of some observers, yeah. Cold and mechanical.
Yeah.
But Alan argues it actually fostered more warmth and freedom in their relationship.
How so?
Because the mechanical stuff, reminders, requests, information sharing, was handled efficiently by the system. It freed up their direct interactions for genuine connection without the mental clutter of trying to remember logistics or pass on messages. The system handled this stuff so they could focus on each other.
Wow, that's actually quite profound. Using structure to enable more authentic connection. I like that.
It highlights that the goal isn't just efficiency for its own sake. And ultimately, the methods themselves are straightforward.
Yeah, nothing requires, like, advanced calculus.
Right. The sources stress they're simple to understand and easy to implement and require no new skills. You already know how to write things down, make lists, decide things.
So it's about applying those basic skills consistently within a framework.
Exactly. Leveraging what you already know into a coherent set of behaviors that lead to that state of relaxed control. It's about habit formation more than learning complex new techniques.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive into GTD really hammers home that shift from feeling overwhelmed and cluttered to achieving clarity and control.
It's about getting things out of your head, processing them systematically, organizing them logically, reviewing consistently, and then making trusted choices about what to do.
Developing those habits, trusting your system so your mind doesn't have to keep track of everything. It can actually focus.
That's the prize, isn't it? Freedom from the noise of undone things so you can be fully present and engaged with whatever you are doing. That's where the real performance and, frankly, peace comes from.
Okay, so as we finish this deep dive, here's something for you, the listener, to chew on. A final thought.
GTD helps you build, as the source says, a tight ship to sail. It optimizes the journey, makes it smooth and efficient, but it doesn't tell you where to sail.
Ah, it's the how, not the what or the why.
Exactly. It perfects the mechanics, but you still have to define the destination, the purpose. And when you're not sure where you're going, you'll never know when enough is enough. The system gives you capacity, but you choose how to use it.
That's a great point. So maybe as a very first step after listening, think about just one thing nagging at you right now, one open loop.
Yeah, pick one, anything, and just ask yourself, what is the very next physical action required to move that forward, even just a tiny bit? Can you define it right now?
Doing just that for just one thing might be the start of feeling a little less overwhelmed. Remember, the goal isn't necessarily to do more.
No, it's about feeling good about your choices, feeling in control, even when inevitably you have more to do than you can possibly do. It's about managing the flow, not damming the river. Give it a thought.